Now, what people are pointing out here is the look on Breanna January's face while she's clapping. It's the damn it. Kelsey, man, I tried my hardest to get Kelsey. I tried my hardest for Kelsey Mitchell. Damn. Folks, you take a look at the close-up of, oh man, this ain't a good look. This is. And with this coach in the background, turning back saying, damn, you can't even clap.
That response has now become part of the narrative. Caitlin Clark earned another significant weekly award. However, rather than focusing solely on her performance, fans instantly began watching who applauded, who paused, and who appeared uncomfortable.
Is your WNBA Eastern Conference Player of the Week for the third time this season. Now, I believe injury has kept her from receiving 2 of those awards. Otherwise, it could be more than just these 3 times. Caitlin Clark this past week, 25.7 points per game, 53.7% from the field, 9 assists per game, and 5.
Those statistics are why this discussion cannot be written off as nothing more than popularity, hype, or name recognition. Clark put up averages of 25.7 points, 9 assists, and 5 rebounds while shooting 53.7% from the field, securing Eastern Conference Player of the Week honors for the 3rd time this season. This was not a symbolic award given simply because she draws attention. It reflected a complete offensive performance from a player handling multiple responsibilities at the same time. She is expected to score with efficiency, generate opportunities for her teammates, dictate the tempo,
don't reintegrate a player into your offensive system when they spend more time on a bike.
Yet the most significant part of this story is not merely that Clark received the award. It is the debate taking shape over what her success represents for the rest of Indiana, the MVP race, and those who had previously ranked several other guards ahead of her. Once the actual production is compared, some of those narratives become incredibly difficult to support. Later, we also need to look at the true reason Clark could still face challenges in winning MVP, even if her numbers continue to be remarkable. It has far less to do with whether she is talented enough and much more to do with what voters have traditionally required before they are willing to hand her the award. Those statistics are why this discussion cannot be written off as nothing more than popularity, hype, or name recognition. Clark put up averages of 25.7 points, 9 assists, and 5 rebounds while shooting 53.7% from the field, securing Eastern Conference Player of the Week honors for the 3rd time this season. This was not a symbolic award given simply because she draws attention. It reflected a complete offensive performance from a player handling multiple responsibilities at the same time. She is expected to score with efficiency, generate opportunities for her teammates, dictate the tempo, dismantle defensive pressure, and make an impact on the boards. Yet the most significant part of this story is not merely that Clark received the award. It is the debate taking shape over what her success represents for the rest of Indiana, the MVP race, and those who had previously ranked several other guards ahead of her. Once the actual production is compared, some of those narratives become incredibly difficult to support. Later, we also need to look at the true reason Clark could still face challenges in winning MVP, even if her numbers continue to be remarkable. It has far less to do with whether she is talented enough and much more to do with what voters have traditionally required before they are willing to hand her the award.
The other person that won Player of the Week, the other person that's going to be in the conversation with her, A'ja Wilson, 32, 12, and 4.7. These numbers head to head, it's going to go down to the... Caitlin Clark needs to continue to put together weeks like the weeks she just had and put some pressure on these media members. The Indiana Fever are going to need to continue to win, and then that conversation is going to get very, very, very...
A'ja Wilson's week was outstanding. She averaged 32 points, 12 rebounds, and nearly 5 assists per game. That establishes the legitimate benchmark Clark is pursuing. Wilson is not an artificially created obstacle, and suggesting otherwise would only weaken Clark's argument. She is an elite player delivering elite production. That is why the MVP discussion should not be reduced to opposing fan bases trading insults. The real point of interest is how voters evaluate 2 entirely different kinds of game control. Wilson has the ability to dominate through scoring, rebounding, physical play, interior defense, and reliable two-way performance. Clark, meanwhile, dictates games through scoring, passing, tempo, floor spacing, transition pressure, and the total number of points Indiana produces because the ball is in her hands. Those approaches cannot be neatly measured within a single statistical category. If the focus is primarily on scoring and rebounding, Wilson may seem to hold the obvious edge. But if the evaluation centers on offensive creation, playmaking volume, defensive attention, and the quality of opportunities created for teammates, Clark's argument becomes considerably stronger. That is why the closing stretch of the season is so important. One outstanding week creates tension. A series of outstanding weeks creates pressure. If Clark continues performing this efficiently while Indiana continues winning, voters will eventually need to explain precisely what separates her from Wilson instead of simply repeating that Wilson is the established favorite.
Take a look at Stephanie White.
We got an Eastern Conference Player of the Week.
Yeah, fix those shorts, dude. Fix those shorts, man. Fix those shorts.
Eastern Conference Player of the Week.
Fix those.
The announcement itself appears completely ordinary. Stephanie White informs the team that they have the Eastern Conference Player of the Week. Clark is presented with the honor, and the room responds. Then social media does what it always does. It slows the video, zooms in on faces, and treats every expression as potential evidence. Brian January's reaction became the center of attention because she did not seem as openly enthusiastic as some viewers anticipated. The original commentary views that response as disappointment and links it to the belief that Indiana's coaching staff may want Kelsey Mitchell to receive more recognition. That conclusion, however, cannot be confirmed from a single facial expression captured in a brief moment. Someone can appear serious for countless reasons. She may have been distracted, exhausted, unaware the camera was recording, or simply less expressive than everyone else. Using one paused frame as conclusive proof of resentment would be unfair. Even so, the reaction spread across social media because it aligned with an existing suspicion among Clark's supporters. They already believe Indiana occasionally shifts away from the offensive approach that gets the most out of Clark. They already question why the team sometimes makes other players the offensive focal point while Clark becomes less involved. As a result, when a coach appears less enthusiastic during Clark's announcement, viewers connect that image to everything they already believed. The key story is not whether anyone can know what Brian January was thinking. We cannot. The key story is why so many fans were already prepared to interpret that moment negatively before the clip had even ended.
Coach looking around, man, you can't even be happy for her, huh? Brian January is just thinking, all right, how do I get it to be Kelsey next week? How do I get it to be Kelsey next? Folks, you look at this. Their plan is not working. CC is getting MVP. Can't even hide it anymore. Golly, can't even hide it anymore.
That response from the audience reveals the tension surrounding this team. Clark's supporters are not simply looking for her to earn individual honors. They want Indiana to build its identity around the player they believe gives the franchise its greatest potential. Whenever the Fever win with Clark directing the offense, her fans view it as proof that the formula is successful. When the offense becomes slower, more static, or less centered on her playmaking, they interpret it as coaching interference. As a result, every possession becomes part of a much larger debate about control. This mindset can become unhealthy if every accomplishment by a teammate is viewed as competition with Clark. Kelsey Mitchell performing at an elite scoring level does not reduce Clark's importance. Aaliyah Boston getting more touches does not automatically indicate that the coaching staff is undermining Clark. A strong team requires multiple offensive options, especially when opponents design their entire defensive strategy around limiting one player. The real question is whether those alternatives work alongside Clark or replace the advantages she provides. There is a significant difference between creating opportunities for Mitchell after Clark has already forced the defense to react and taking Clark out of the action while the offense begins all over again. One approach takes advantage of the attention Clark draws. The other gives the defense time to recover. Indiana's challenge is not deciding between Clark, Mitchell, and Boston. It is building a system in which Clark's gravity enhances the opportunities available to everyone else.
Take a look at the past 5 games. Shout out to CDS Sports Podcast. Go subscribe. Last 5 games. Olivia Miles and Kayla Clark head-to-head. Olivia Miles, 113 points. Caitlin Clark, 121 points. Olivia Miles, 28 assists. Caitlin Clark, 45 assists. Olivia Miles, 1.33 points per shot. Cece, 1.78 points per shot. So with all this conversation of Olivia Miles, did she prove that she's a better player than Caitlin Clark? I don't know what game everybody's watching. I don't know what games everybody's watching, but...
Now, the comparison involving Olivia Miles gives this debate a stronger statistical foundation. Across the 5-game sample featured in the video, Miles scored 113 points, while Clark totaled 121. Miles finished with 28 assists, whereas Clark recorded 45. The graphic also listed Miles at 1.33 points per shot and Clark at 1.78. A 5-game sample does not determine who will ultimately have the better career, nor should it outweigh the entire season. Miles can be an outstanding player without being ahead of Clark at this point. The issue arises when a brief stretch, a single matchup, or one viral highlight is used to support a broad conclusion that falls apart once overall offensive responsibility is taken into account. Clark was not only the higher scorer during that sample. She also produced 17 more assists, which means she was directly creating significantly more offense for her teammates, even before calculating the value of those assisted baskets. That difference demonstrates why judging her only by points per game overlooks a substantial part of her overall impact. This is where discussions about guards frequently become misleading. A scorer can simply complete a possession. A primary playmaker must begin it, read the defense, manipulate help defenders, handle traps, locate the open teammate, and still remain a legitimate scoring threat. Those responsibilities are not the same. Miles deserves to be included in conversations about the league's top young guards. Paige Bueckers belongs in those conversations as well. However, ranking either player ahead of Clark requires more than appreciation for the way they play. It requires demonstrating that they are currently generating more offense, commanding greater defensive attention, or leading to better team results. The 5-game comparison presented here does not accomplish that. It suggests the opposite.
MVP candidates: Caitlin Clark, A'ja Wilson, Paige Bueckers, Olivia Miles, Kelsey Mitchell, Breanna Stewart. League rankings across key offensive metrics. Points per game, A'ja Wilson. A'ja Wilson, she's on quite a tear this year. I gotta call a spade. Assists per game, Caitlin Clark, second in the league in assists per game. Points created, first in points created. Points per game created, first in points per game created. Points per minute, Caitlin Clark, first in points per minute. I'm telling you, folks, the battle between these two, Caitlin Clark and A'ja Wilson.
This is the stage where the MVP race begins to narrow. The graphic features Clark, Wilson, Bueckers, Miles, Mitchell, and Breanna Stewart across multiple offensive categories. Wilson sits at the top of the scoring conversation, while Clark ranks near the top in assists and reportedly leads the group in categories related to points created and points produced per minute. Those creation metrics are important because assists by themselves do not fully reflect a playmaker's impact. Clark can draw 2 defenders toward the ball, deliver the pass that starts the defensive rotation, and create an open shot without being credited with an assist if one more pass is made afterward. She can increase the tempo before the defense has time to get organized, creating a mismatch that a teammate eventually takes advantage of. She can pull a defender several feet beyond the 3-point line, opening driving lanes without touching the ball again. That is offensive gravity. It is not easy to capture with a single traditional statistic, but opposing defenses demonstrate it through the way they respond. When defenders pick her up early, send multiple players toward her ball screens, and build their entire game plan around stopping her preferred actions, they are recognizing her influence. Wilson presents a different kind of challenge. Opposing defenses must account for her physical strength near the basket, her ability to score from multiple areas of the floor, her rebounding, and the problems she creates when smaller defenders are switched onto her. At the defensive end, her impact provides another way to affect games even on nights when her shot is not falling. That distinction is why Clark's road to winning MVP will likely require an overwhelming offensive argument. She may have to create enough separation as an offensive engine that voters consider her overall influence equal to or greater than Wilson's two-way dominance. Simply remaining close may not be enough.
What metrics certain people want to use to prove their case. But hey, Kelsey Mitchell, I mean, if you look at this, I mean, all Kelsey Mitchell does is really just score. When you compare her to when you compare it to Caitlin, A'ja, and Paige, and Olivia Miles. Kelsey Mitchell, really, it's clear that all she does is just score the ball. Even A'ja Wilson's averaging more assists per game than Kelsey Mitchell, averaging, you compare her to her contemporaries like Paige Bueckers, another shooting guard.
Kelsey Mitchell's role in this debate is more complex than either perspective acknowledges. The criticism presented in the clip is that Mitchell is primarily a scorer, while Clark, Wilson, Bueckers, and Miles make contributions across a wider range of categories. From a statistical standpoint, that may reduce Mitchell's MVP argument, but treating scoring as though it is a lesser responsibility understates the value of what she provides. Scoring at an elite level does not happen automatically. Mitchell must create space, attack openings, convert difficult shots, and capitalize on defensive schemes that concentrate significant attention on Clark. Her quickness changes the spacing of the floor. Once she gains an advantage, she can turn it into points before the defense has a chance to recover. The stronger point is not that Mitchell simply scores. It is that an MVP contender usually needs either historically dominant scoring or a broader range of overall impact. If another player delivers comparable scoring while also recording 9 assists, controlling the pace, contributing on the boards, and acting as the offense's primary decision-maker, voters will generally place greater value on that wider responsibility. This is also why the Player of the Week comparison cannot be settled by placing Mitchell's scoring average beside Clark's. Mitchell may have scored more, but Clark's efficiency, playmaking, and rebounding gave her several additional ways to influence winning. Indiana should not let that award become a cause of division. Mitchell gains from Clark's presence, and Clark benefits from having a scorer capable of breaking down a defense that commits too much attention to her. Their partnership is the roster's greatest strength, not a rivalry the team must solve.
January, can you try to look excited? Can you just try to look excited? And then you stopped playing CC Ball and went back to AB being the hub, coaching incompetence yet again. Atta girl, you on it, CC. Not bad for the 11th ranked guard in the day. Yeah, not bad at all. But her turnovers and her efficiency, she can't play D. What are they going to say next? Best point guard in the league. Yeah, that I don't think it's even a question. I don't even think that's going to be a question.
The comment about being the 11th ranked guard explains why this award carried far more emotional significance than a typical weekly announcement. Clark supporters believe she has consistently been judged by standards that change depending on the outcome. Whenever she scores, critics shift the focus to efficiency. Once she becomes efficient, they point to turnovers. When the turnovers go down, attention turns to defense. If Indiana wins, the credit goes to the roster. If Indiana loses, the entire result is blamed on her decisions. Some of that criticism is justified. Clark should be evaluated fairly as a defender. Her turnovers deserve examination, particularly because she handles so many possessions. Efficiency is important. No player should be exempt from analysis simply because the audience supports her. The frustration arises when those weaknesses are treated as disqualifying in Clark's case, while they are viewed as contextual for everyone else. High-usage playmakers often commit more turnovers because they attempt more difficult passes and are responsible for making more decisions. That does not mean every turnover should be overlooked. It means both usage and role need to be taken into account. The same reasoning applies on the defensive end. If Clark's defensive shortcomings are considered a major part of the MVP discussion, then voters should apply the same level of scrutiny to every candidate. If another guard benefits from playing within a stronger team defensive system, that context matters. If a frontcourt player gains a significant advantage because of her defensive impact, that advantage should be recognized openly. Consistent standards lead to credible analysis. Selective standards create resentment. And Clark supporters have become highly attentive to any indication that the criteria are being adjusted specifically around her.
Please don't speak up. You're literally working yourselves out of a job. Now, I love me some Caitlin Clark, but Kelsey Mitchell deserved. I don't think so. I don't think Kelsey Mitchell deserved. I think if anybody on the team, Caitlin Clark deserved it. Third time's the charm. 25, 5, and 9 on 53% is absolutely video game numbers. I'm sure the media is angry.
The clip also introduces the broader business discussion that players should acknowledge how Clark's popularity can create more opportunities throughout the league. That argument has some validity, but it becomes problematic when it suggests that other players are obligated to publicly praise her or remain silent. Clark's presence can draw more viewers, sell more tickets, increase media attention, and generate greater commercial opportunities. Those advantages can extend to teammates, opponents, broadcasters, and the league as a whole. A larger audience can lead to stronger sponsorship deals, increased television value, and, over time, better compensation. However, professional athletes are still competitors. They are not required to give up awards, avoid criticizing her, or act as though every debate has already been decided. The league becomes more engaging when players compete against her and believe they are capable of defeating her. Rivalries also generate interest. The most reasonable position lies between those two extremes. It is unrealistic to dismiss the economic impact Clark brings to the league. It is just as unrealistic to label every player who competes against her as ungrateful. Recognizing her influence does not require admiration, and competing against her on the court does not require downplaying what she has achieved. What matters in this MVP race is that the voting remains focused on basketball. Popularity may explain why more people are paying attention to the debate. It should not decide the outcome. Clark's argument must stand on production, efficiency, playmaking, team success, and consistent performance. Based on the week described in this video, it does.
25, 9, and 5 on 53%. Kelsey Mitchell, 31 and 2.3. I mean, when you put their numbers side by side like this, Kelsey Mitchell does have the scoring edge, but she takes more shots, and Caitlin Clark, she has more than one job. Her job is to score, her job is to facilitate, and with AB sitting around at the three-point line being the hubba, Caitlin Clark's job is also to rebound the basketball, because it seems like nobody on this team is actually a dominant rebounder. Nobody's a dominant rebounder on this team.
Here is the direct comparison that explains why Clark received the award. The numbers displayed were 25.7 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds, and 53% shooting for Clark, compared with 31 points and 2.3 assists for Mitchell. Mitchell held the scoring advantage, but Clark's job description was larger. She had to generate her own offense while also organizing possessions for everyone else. 9 assists per game means she repeatedly created completed scoring opportunities beyond her own 25.7 points. Even using the most conservative value of 2 points per assist, that would place her direct offensive involvement above 43 points per game before considering hockey assists, free throws created, or advantages produced through defensive attention. That does not make Mitchell's 31 points less impressive. It explains why voters could reasonably choose Clark despite the scoring gap. One player was the more prolific finisher. The other combined elite scoring with elite distribution and stronger rebounding production. The comment about Boston operating around the three-point line also points toward a tactical question. When Indiana places a big away from the basket to facilitate, Clark may have to contribute more as a rebounder because the team's interior positioning changes. That can help spacing, but it also creates a cost if nobody consistently attacks the glass. This connects directly to team success, which is the missing piece in Clark's MVP campaign. Her individual production can place her beside Wilson, but Indiana's record will determine whether voters view those numbers as dominant or merely impressive. And that is the answer we held back earlier. The greatest obstacle between Clark and the MVP is probably not Paige Bueckers, Olivia Miles, Kelsey Mitchell, or any argument about whether Clark is the league's best point guard. It is the standings. If Indiana climbs into the top 3 while Clark maintains this level, the race becomes extremely uncomfortable for anyone hoping to dismiss her. If the Fever remain well behind Wilson's team, voters will have a traditional justification for choosing Wilson, even when Clark's offensive numbers are extraordinary.
I want to see what Michaela Timpson does with starter minutes. I want to see if Michaela Timpson can average 10 rebounds per game when she's getting played 30, 35 minutes a game.
Michaela Timpson becomes relevant because Indiana's ceiling may depend on solving weaknesses that Clark cannot solve by herself. The original commentary asks what Timpson could produce with starter-level minutes, particularly as a rebounder. Projecting 10 rebounds per game from limited evidence would be premature, but the underlying concern is legitimate. Indiana needs reliable rebounding, athletic defense, and players who can finish the opportunities Clark creates. When those areas break down, the team wastes possessions that could turn strong individual performances into convincing wins. This is where MVP debates can become unfair to primary creators. Clark can make the correct read, deliver the ball into a favorable position, and still receive no statistical reward if the pass is dropped or the layup is missed. She can create a good possession that ends badly because of execution beyond her control. That does not mean every missed shot should be added to her assist total in an imaginary box score. It means film and context are necessary. A player's ability to create advantages should be evaluated separately from whether every teammate converts them. Indiana also has to decide how much it trusts its young front court options. More minutes can reveal whether a player's rebounding and defense translate against starters, but those minutes must be earned within games that carry real playoff and seeding consequences. Development and contention can pull a coaching staff in different directions. If Timpson can provide energy, rim protection, rebounding, and reliable finishing without disrupting the offense, she could solve several problems at once. That would not merely help the bench. It could strengthen Clark's MVP case by helping Indiana convert her creation into a better record.
Just as good as her first time around. If Caitlin Clark keeps putting numbers like this on the board, if the Indiana Fever continue to win, the conversations between who is going to be MVP of this league between A'ja Wilson and Caitlin Clark, those conversations are going to get very, very spicy. Paige Bueckers kicked out of the conversation. Olivia Miles kicked out of the conversation. Whoever else kicked out of the conversation. It's literally going to be just two juggernauts going head to head. And the media, well, we know who the media favors when it's a conversation between those two. So Caitlin Clark needs to put no doubt.
Now, we return to the prediction that framed the entire discussion. A two-player race between Caitlin Clark and A'ja Wilson. The argument is not fully proven yet. Bueckers, Miles, Stewart, Mitchell, and other candidates cannot simply be erased because of 1 week or one 5-game sample. Seasons change quickly, slumps happen, injuries happen, team records move. A responsible analysis leaves room for new evidence. But Clark and Wilson do appear to represent the clearest competing MVP narratives in the material presented here. Wilson offers established dominance, massive scoring and rebounding production, and elite impact on both ends. Clark offers extraordinary offensive creation, high-volume playmaking, improved efficiency, and a style that can transform the structure of every possession. For Clark, the roadmap is clear. She must sustain the scoring without losing the passing. She must protect the ball well enough that critics cannot turn turnovers into the defining argument. She must continue improving defensively, even if she never matches Wilson's impact on that end. Most importantly, Indiana must win enough games to remove the standings as an easy escape route for voters. For Wilson, the challenge is to keep producing at a level that makes Clark's offensive surge irrelevant. If Wilson continues delivering weeks around 32 points and 12 rebounds while influencing games defensively, Clark may need something historically overwhelming to pass her. That is why the debate is becoming more interesting rather than more settled. Clark's award does not prove she is already the MVP. It proves she has entered the stage of the race where every major performance changes the pressure. The side controversy involving the coach's reactions will probably continue because fans are emotionally invested in Indiana's internal dynamics. Yet, the stronger evidence is on the court. Clark received the honor because she combined scoring, efficiency, passing, and rebounding at a level that separated her from the rest of the Eastern Conference. Now, the choice is yours. If Clark maintains this offensive production and leads Indiana into a top 3 seed, should she win MVP over Wilson, or does Wilson's two-way dominance still give her the stronger case? Put your answer in the comments.